I think looking at the, I'm such a nerd. Looking at the etymology of the two words, really the connotation comes down, I think, to being the same. I think lesbian is just more specific, but I think definitely if you're a girl and you want to say you're gay, that's perfectly fine. I mean, lesbian comes from the Greek island of Lesbos, in the Mediterranean, whereas the word gay was actually used during World War I as sort of like a safety term. Like, we won't get found out. We'll use gay as sort of our word for being homosexual. And so I do find that really interesting. And now it's definitely not a safety word. If you say gay, everybody automatically knows, oh yeah, you're homosexual. So yeah, I think they're perfectly the same.
I say I'm both. I say I'm gay. I say I'm a lesbian. I use it like that.
I know a lot of lesbians that say, oh, I'm a lesbian, oh, I'm gay. And I think it's just whatever they feel like, because I think gay is definitely associated with gay people who are males that are gay. And so a lot of lesbians would probably prefer lesbian for the fact that some people may think gay means liking boys, and they don't like that. But I think it's just also whatever you feel comfortable with, and if someone calls you a gay woman and you're like, oh, can you call me a lesbian, please, or anything like that, although I've never met someone like that, it's it's whatever, because it's same with gender and everything. It's like, if they ask you to call them something, then you should call them that. It's just out of respect. It's out of respect of same if somebody's like, well, hey, can you call me by this name? Or, hey, could you do this instead? It's just out of respect. And if you're really going to be a person who does not call somebody a certain pronoun, like a lot of people are refusing to call Caitlyn Jenner she, and refusing to call your friends that, and taking it to that level, then you really don't have respect for people. And I think that says more about you than what it says about trans people. Because people say, oh, well, I'm saying it because he's truly a guy. But it's more you need to just respect people, because one of the biggest things I have for people who do not respect LGBTQ people is it doesn't affect you at all. A gay marriage does not immediately affect you unless you're the one getting married. And frankly, people just need to respect that we're here, and sure, someone may kiss their girlfriend in front of you, but that's about as far as you're going to be affected by it.
I've just kind of adopted both terms.
I think sort of for the same reason why some people like labeling their sexuality really, really specifically, and others are like, yeah, I mean, I guess you could call me gay, but I mean, I'm not completely, and they sort of, generalize a little bit more. I think it's for the same reason. Some people really do want to make it clear to other people what their sexuality is and what they identify as. And some, I think, just think a little bit more generally. I think it's a matter of just preference of, do I really want to be specific, or, do I like being a little bit more general?
It's going to comfort places, because I know people who don't like labels as far as their gender and everything, and they're like, call me they and that kind of stuff. And it's just finding whatever you like, and I don't think it's changing your sexuality. I don't think you suddenly like guys because you call yourself gay. I think it's more changing what you identify as and what you are more comfortable with.
Yes. Yeah. I totally think sexuality can change. I think one of the things, I mean, there have been studies that have shown, like, people earlier in their lives identifying much more strictly with one sexuality, and then maybe later in their lives they come participate in the same study and they go, nah, yeah, but I've also, gotten more in touch with, the other side of my sexuality. Maybe I was a little bit more identified more as a heterosexual earlier on, and but now I'm a little bit more both ways. So I definitely think sexuality is fluid. I mean, that's the first thing. I mean, that's sexuality 101. When you start learning about it, you learn that sexuality in its very nature is psychological, and because psychology is so, out there and can change so much, I mean, why not sexuality, right?
I think this kind of applies to myself because when you're struggling to find a label for yourself, which you don't need to find in the first place, it's kind of starts off with me, like, I knew about lesbians and my parents were accepting of any, like, gay and lesbian people, and they didn't really care about that. And so at first I was like, oh, I'm a lesbian, but I'm like, oh, I like guys too. So it was hard to kind of decipher, and definitely like middle school, I did not know what a pansexual was. I didn't know what that was. So I identified strictly as bi. And I think you can change your own label, but truly inside you'll eventually find a label that fits you. And so I think when someone goes from bisexual to gay, everyone I've known that has changed their sexuality, it's more that they were trying to come to terms with who they truly were, and that's kind of how it was for me, that I finally came to terms with who I was, and even though I had to go through a couple labels on the way, I'm finally there. It's just like with every other part of your life.
No, I mean, my parents aren't as conservative as hers. We aren't really a church-going family, best way to put it. We strongly believe that no matter what your sexuality is, that, it just doesn't matter. But why my mom cried when I told her was because she thought for the longest time I was straight. But I knew around 7th grade that I was.
I thought, and I think that she was probably scared for you.
Yeah,
because
she was scared.
there aren't many people who don't identify as strictly heterosexual. We're definitely in the minority, and there are definitely people like my parents used to be, that absolutely hate homosexuality, homosexual relationships.
But she's all for it, but for the longest time I couldn't tell them because it brought really bad anxiety. Like, it's nerve-wracking to not know what your parents' reaction will be, or the people you care about. Like, I didn't even come out to my friends till my freshman year of high school.
I don't think so. I think it would have definitely been different if I came out as a different gender, which I'm completely female and identify as. So, but I think if I came out as lesbian, they would be more understanding at first. But it's just more of a culture thing that we need to also all get through, is talking more about the non-binary genders and sexualities, and it's less about my parents and anything else.
I actually did come out as bisexual first. And then, because I was still trying to figure out what I was, because I tried so hard to like boys. And I really loved my boyfriends, but I wasn't in love with my boyfriends. And so I didn't really know what love was, and so I was confused for a little while. I was like, I just knew that I was attracted to females. And then I started dating women and talking to women in flirtatious and romantic ways, and then I just realized that I'm a lesbian, I'm not bisexual, and then I told my parents that, and by that time they were kind of getting used to the idea. They had always asked, when I was out as bisexual, why can't you just choose boys? And so I kind of really thought about that. I was like, yeah, well, if I am bisexual, why can't I just choose boys?